There comes a moment in every woman's life when the touch no longer satisfies, when the conversations sound like echoes, and when the body simply goes quiet, not from pain, not from coldness, but from exhaustion. The exhaustion of being chosen, but never truly seen, of being touched, but never really felt, of always being something for someone and never simply herself. Maybe it starts slowly. A date she cancels, a message she doesn't reply to, a night she spends alone by choice. And from the outside, it looks like distance. But from the inside, it feels like something ancient awakening, something wild, something sacred. Not everyone will understand, because we live in a world that fears a woman who doesn't beg to be desired. But what if her silence is an emptiness? What if it's the soul beginning to whisper? Carl Jung once said, "What you do not make conscious appears in your life as fate." And for many women, fate arrives quietly, as a longing without a name, a hunger that can no longer be fed by another's mouth, a thirst that no longer seeks a lover's body, but her own truth. In today's video, we're not talking about abstinence as avoidance. We're talking about abstinence as alchemy, as sacred rebellion, as a return to what society taught her to abandon, her own soul. By the end of this journey, you won't see her silence as a problem. You'll see it as a portal. And maybe, just maybe, you'll recognize the stillness inside yourself too. If these words already stir something unspoken in you, leave a comment. Let me know where you are in your journey. And subscribe, because sometimes one whisper is enough to awaken the entire woman. Number 1, the withdrawal, when desire no longer feeds her. It doesn't start with heartbreak. It starts with silence. Not the silence between two people, but the silence that begins inside a woman, when her body no longer reacts to being wanted, when the rush of being desired feels more like a noise than a song. She stops laughing at texts that used to make her smile. The thrill of a compliment dissolves mid-sentence. And even in the arms of someone who adores her, she feels farther than ever. What happened? Nothing broke. Nothing burned. She just shifted. There comes a point when a woman realizes that what once fed her now drains her, not because love is wrong, but because she was never taught how to love herself without it. She begins to pull away, not out of punishment, but protection. She's not playing hard to get. She's hard to reach, because she's digging into parts of herself that no one ever cared to explore. Carl Jung once wrote, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." And this time, she's tired of disguises, tired of contorting into roles that fit his desires, but starve her truth. So she withdraws, not to punish him, not to disappear, but to remember, to re-enter herself, the way a diver returns to the deep, not because she's drowning, but because the surface never showed her who she really was. She no longer wants to be kissed. She wants to be understood. She no longer craves passion. She craves peace. To the world, it looks like she's pushing love away, but in truth, she's finally listening to a deeper voice inside that whispers, "Don't go looking for home in someone else's mouth." And that whisper becomes louder with every message she doesn't send, every touch she doesn't chase. She's not growing colder. She's growing clearer, because when desire no longer feeds her, she begins to hunger for something she's never tasted before, herself. Number 2, the shadow appears, the woman she never let herself be. Silence doesn't stay still. When a woman stops reacting to the world, something inside her begins to move. Not gently, not peacefully, but like a storm long held back, finally given permission to arrive. She thought she was withdrawing for peace. But what comes first is chaos. Suddenly, memories resurface. Moments she swallowed instead of screamed. Desires she labeled as too much. Rage she disguised as silence. Longing she buried beneath. Being nice. Being lovable. Being chosen. And now, there's no one left to perform for. The mirror is empty. No audience. No applause. Only her, and the reflection she's avoided her entire life. Carl Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And now, she sees it. How many of her heartbreaks were not betrayals, but reflections of her unspoken needs? How many men did she chase because she was running from herself? The shadow isn't some dark demon lurking in the psyche. It's the woman she never let herself be. The bold one, the angry one, the sensual one, the honest one. She was always there, watching from behind the mask, waiting for silence to finally open the door. But this meeting isn't soft. It shakes her, because for the first time, she's not being hurt by someone else. She's being held accountable by the truth within her. She realizes all her life she's been editing herself just to be palatable. Now she tastes the bitterness of everything she never dared to say. And it burns, but beneath the burn is gold, because the woman who meets her shadow stops begging to be loved for the part she performs and starts owning the parts she once feared. She's no longer asking, will they love me like this? She's asking, can I love myself even now? And in that question, her real power begins. Not polished, not pleasing, but present, fully. Number 3, the rebellion. She no longer wants to be chosen. Something breaks. Not outside, not in the world, but inside her gaze. There comes a moment when she no longer wants to be seen as beautiful, desirable, perfect. She just wants to be seen, fully, without softening her voice, without hiding her depth, without trimming her soul, to fit into someone else's palm. She no longer wants to be chosen, because she's tired of waiting for permission to exist as she is. For too long, she has been the moon, glowing just enough to draw him in, but never so fully that she blinds. But now, she burns, not to be picked, but to be known, not to be admired, but to be understood. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that's what this is, a revolt against the roles that reduced her to a reflection of what others could handle. She no longer fits inside the fantasy of the soft, pliable girl who waits to be claimed. She is not a reward. She is not a muse. She is not an accessory to a man's becoming. She is her own becoming. So when men tell her she's too much, she smiles, because now she knows they're just too little for the vastness of who she's becoming. And it's not cruelty, it's clarity. She doesn't reject love. She rejects love that asks her to be less, to dim her intensity, to apologize for her intuition, to shrink her soul, to fit inside a romantic cliche. This is not a woman who is cold. This is a woman who has finally remembered her heat. And from that place, she no longer waits to be invited into someone's life. She stands and watches who dares step into hers, not with desire, but with depth, because love, if it comes, must meet her where she now lives, in truth, not fantasy. And she would rather walk alone in truth than be adored in illusion. Number 4, the wilderness. The sacred feminine reawakens. There is a forest, beyond roles, beyond romance, beyond reason. And when she stops performing, she begins to hear it. At first, it's faint, a hum beneath her bones, a knowing older than her name. No one told her it would feel like this. Not freedom, but fire. Not peace, but primal electricity waking in her chest. This isn't self-love, it's self-remembering. She begins to walk differently, not softer, but steadier, not for attention, but for direction. She stops dressing for the male gaze. She stops adjusting her voice in rooms where she's too deep. She no longer softens her anger. She listens to it, because now she understands what they called too emotional was intuition. What they called crazy was clarity. Carl Jung wrote, the feminine unconscious is the bridge between consciousness and mystery. And now she's on that bridge. She doesn't seek approval. She seeks symbols, synchronicities, stillness. And in that stillness, the wild woman returns, not the reckless one, but the rooted one, the one who knows when to speak and when to disappear, the one who can make a man tremble, not with seduction, but with silence. Her value is no longer how many want her, it's how deeply she knows her own rhythms. She doesn't chase, she doesn't wait, she doesn't beg, she gathers, she builds, she burns what no longer serves. The world may not understand her now. That's fine. She was never meant to be understood by a system built to tame her. She wasn't born to be palatable. She was born to be whole. And the deeper she walks into this wilderness, the more she remembers. She is not lost. She is home, not in a lover's arms, but in the untamed, unshakable truth of who she is when no one is watching. Number 5, the rebirth. She is no longer touched. She touches. Something soft has died, and something deeper has risen in its place. She no longer waits for the text, no longer wonders if she's too intense. She doesn't ask, will they still love me if I'm all of me? Because now, she is the one who touches, not bodies, but energy. She walks into a room, and the air shifts, not because she seeks to impress, but because she carries something that cannot be replicated. Presence. She used to think intimacy meant being held. Now she knows the truest intimacy is being fully seen, without shrinking. Carl Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. And she has integrated the girl who begged, the lover who performed, the woman who waited. Now she doesn't wait. She chooses. She chooses herself. In every silence. In every no that used to scare her. In every lonely night that now feels like cathedral. Instead of a punishment, she used to fear missing out. Now she fears losing herself. She's not looking for love to save her. She is love refined, distilled, unapologetically whole. What touches her now isn't a hand. It's truth. It's resonance. It's someone who doesn't flinch when she's honest, who doesn't shrink when she's still, because she knows if love comes, it must arrive, not to fill, but to mirror, not to complete her, but to walk beside her fire, without needing to dim it. And if it doesn't come, she will not wither, because she is no longer the woman who needs to be chosen. To feel real, she is the flame. And those who cannot stand the heat were never meant to stand close. She isn't looking for touch. She is the touch, a force, a pulse, a woman who went so far inward that the world can feel her coming. Before she says a word, she withdrew, she unraveled, she walked through shadows. She let go of love that wasn't real. She faced the wilderness within. And now, she is no longer returning to who she was, because that woman is gone. The woman who needed to be chosen, the woman who equated attention with affection, the woman who waited for permission to live, to speak, to burn. She doesn't need to go back, because forward into her fullness is the only direction she now honors. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And what she's done is walk through the dark, without a map, without a hand to hold, without applause or validation. She met herself at the edge, and instead of stepping back, she stepped in. Now she speaks less, but when she does, the room listens, not because her words are louder, but because her silence is weight. She is no longer seduced by the temporary. She is loyal to the eternal, not the illusion of romance, but the pulse of truth. And if love arrives, it will arrive clean, without performance, without possession, without the need to be rescued, because she rescued herself. And what once felt like emptiness now feels like sacred space, an altar, a threshold, a life she doesn't owe to anyone else's gaze. You might not recognize her. That's okay. She's not here to be recognizable. She's here to be real. And perhaps, so are you. So ask yourself, what part of you has gone quiet? What mask are you still wearing? Just to feel safe? What truth inside you is begging for stillness so it can finally speak? Tonight, don't scroll it away. Don't distract it. Don't numb it. Listen, because that silence is not emptiness. It's the beginning of something holy. And once your soul begins to speak, there's no going back. She didn't return to the world. She became it.